Welcome, CP1 students, to our asynchronous class, the second week of Quad 1 of the spring at Point Loma Nazarene University. So glad you're here, and I just want to apologize first for the delay. I'd hoped I'd have it done yesterday, but I needed to have the Canvas modules all published and ready to go, and it took me the entire day to do that, and yesterday I was working on my dissertation. So that's the background, and I'm glad that you're here. On the screen in front of you, you will see the link for the Pear Deck. The link is there actually, so what you'll need to do first to get access to the Canvas, to the link, is go to Canvas. So let's switch over really quickly. Let's take a look at Canvas. I'm going to go to Asynchronous Video. It's all open, by the way. Canvas is all open. So the first thing you need to do is read the overview. It'll give you an overview of what we're doing today. And then the second thing you need to do is click on this link for the asynchronous class, and that's where you'll be able to go to the video and the PowerPoint. They will both be here in the asynchronous portion of the module. So be sure you go there to find it. And so let's get started. So this evening you are also going to see the words down at the bottom of the page that I'm speaking, so hopefully that will help you to have text to speech a little bit this evening. So let's continue and get going. Let's move on to slide 2. So you want to roll to slide 2. And so this is our asynchronous session. So tonight you need to be ready to participate in every slide and follow along. Be sure to predict what your next steps will be towards the TPA once the evening is done. Start mapping out what you're going to do next on your clinical practice planner. And tonight you want to check in on the attendance sheet for Monday if you're the Monday class, or Tuesday if you're the Tuesday class. So once you click on it, obviously I'll head on over to the attendance sheet, and hoping that my internet moves a little more quickly as I do in class. It's the same thing now, so there we go. So this is what you want to make sure and do. We are needing to mark down for today is the 19th or the 18th, whichever session you are in. So just be sure you mark your attendance for that day. And then on the slides for feedback, please be sure that you include your questions or any needs for clarification, and that you actually complete the slides. That's how you're going to get credit for this evening, all right? It's important that you follow through and do all of the slides, because they are going to prepare you for the TPA. All right, so this evening, this is what you need to have with you. So gather with you. You should have your assessment guide. Hopefully you picked it up from my front porch, or you have it digital. You have your CP planner sitting next to you ready to go. Everyone should generally have a printed copy of that, or you're going to fill it in digitally. Make sure you have like a notebook or something that you've been taking notes in, or whether maybe it's the back side of your CP planner pages, which is just fine. Any writing tools you need. Have your Canvas window open, have this class PowerPoint open, and then once again make sure you sign in for your attendance, whether you're Monday or Tuesday class. Second, be sure you have a distraction-free environment that is comfortable and amenable to learning. Now, the benefit of having an asynchronous class session is that you can pause it and come back to it. So that's even better right now. That's an option. So please do so. If you need to, just pause, get yourself settled, do what you need to do, and come on back. 3, in the Pear Deck, right now, this is what I want you to do. I want you to answer the question, what are you thinking about the most today in relation to Clinical Practice 1? So I want you to pause the video right now, press pause, and you're going to type in the answer to what are you thinking about the most today in relation to Clinical Practice 1. All right, go ahead and pause the video and answer that question. All right, welcome back. So now what I want to do is a stress check. All of these are very helpful for me as your professor to know where you are and what your needs are, and guides my teaching as you do in the classroom in your clinical practice student teaching during the day. So I need you to mark, bless you, that was my husband in the background. My microphone is very strong and powerful, so you probably heard that. Mark a 0 if you're good and you're ready to go and you can focus. Mark 5 if you feel like something's bothering you. This has been a tough week already, but you can still focus. Or closer to a 10, I am struggling to manage my emotions and I may struggle learning this evening. So that really, really is helpful for me to know where you are. It helps me guide my teaching. So do that. Pause right now or while I'm talking and go ahead and mark the location of where you're feeling between a 0 and a 10. All right, next, let's kind of predict what you feel like you need and what you're worried about and what you're relieved about. So in number 1, I want you to consider what you need to know, and this is what I need to know. What are you worried about? Maybe you're worried about how you're going to get the information about your students. How am I going to find out what information about my focus 1, 2, or 3 student? Or perhaps you're worried about working with your new cooperating teacher. Whatever it might be, put your worries in there for me. And then what are you relieved about? Perhaps this week it's your second week of working with your cooperating teacher, and you're enjoying it tremendously and you feel like you guys have got a good connection, so maybe you're super relieved about that. Maybe you were finally placed because it's been a delay. Perhaps your mentor at your school, if you're an intern, is working really well with you and has given you some great ideas. Whatever it might be, just type it in. And actually, it could even be, I got a really good nap today, whatever. Then that sometimes would be a miracle when we're teaching, right? If we would get enough sleep. So pause and go ahead and type that, and I'll give you a minute or so. All right, so this is our agenda for this asynchronous class. So we just did our wellness check. Been praying for you already, hoping you're doing well and believing that God's got you in the palm of his hands and he's taking care of you in this crazy time. We're going to march into step 1, the overview and the exemplar. So we're going to be taking a look at template A and B. So that's why you're going to need your assessment guide really close by to you. And your CP1 planner, because the compass maps are located in the back of that, which we're going to take a look at. We'll need all of those each week. And then we'll wrap it up with questions. We'll go over, the plans for the next week and things you need to know, and then we'll end with questions. All right, moving on to the next slide. So right now what I want to be sure of is that you have your assessment guide next to you. You have your planner next to you, and that also you've got Canvas open and ready to go, and that you've got your PowerPoint in front of you, that you're not just necessarily looking just off of mine, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at our compass map, which if you open your planner and go to about page 15, as it says on the slide, I think it's still page 15, look around there. These are the compass maps, and we're going to be looking at step 1. This is the overview, which is the broad view of all of step 1. Now, step 1, as I mentioned last week, is the largest of all the 4 steps. It's much more time-consuming and a lot of preparation and planning, because that's where the preparation and planning goes in to be able to record and do your lesson in step 2. So that's why step 1 is so big. So step 1 is plan. So when you look at this, it gives you your vocabulary you're going to need, assets-based learning, funds of knowledge, higher order thinking skills, universal design for learning, and an inclusive learning environment. Sorry, it's really small on my screen. And so those are words that you are going to need to know and understand what the CTC regards them as being. So you also have those words in your assessment guide in the glossary and in your planner. So please be sure that when you, and they want you to use all of these words, be sure you understand them. Be sure you understand what assets-based learning is, which is in the overview. It'll actually give you a little video and a background information. So please be sure you look at those overviews each week in great detail. As we launch into this, we've got to look at what do we need? What are we going to need? Well, first part we're going to work on today is part A. And that's the evidence to show that you know your students. So you're going to be gathering information. You may have already started doing so. You're going to be gathering information on the assets and the learning needs of your class and your 3 focus students. So you're picking 3 focus students, and we're going to go into that in just a moment. Be sure that you know who they are. You're going to figure out what their assets and their learning needs are, and that's what template A is. is a written narrative template on getting to know your students and what they need to know. So that's this section right here, also this section here on the screen. And you can have no more than 9 pages. And this is long because you have your 3 focus students that you need to include in there, okay? The next section is going to be Part B, Template B, which is your lesson plan. So that's the section here in the middle. This is the lesson plan where you're going to need to include, obviously, your content, your California content standards, the specific content you're going to teach, and the background knowledge students will need to have. You're going to use, not the UDL lesson plan, you're going to use the learning segment, the actual template, okay? And I'll kind of show you when we get there. We used these last quad, our UDL lesson plan. We've been using these the 3 years I've been here. And last quad, students weren't passing using the UDL, so we are now recommending that you use the Pearson Template B, their template, to answer the questions. We think that the scores are having a hard time finding the content that they want because they're not as familiar with our lesson plan. So please do not use the Point Loma UDL lesson plan. You're going to use the template. And that is here. Whoops, let me go back one. Sorry about that. Template B lesson plan. Then you're going to do Part C, which is a written narrative lesson plan rationale. So it's, why did I write the lesson that I did? Explain how my lesson addresses my students' assets, and that's here. The assets and the UDL and inclusion, all of those things need to be a part of that rationale. Why did I choose to do those things? And then Part D is a non-template portion. It's Part D, and it's anything you used in your lesson plan, anything related to instruction, any resources and materials. And you're going to just create that like in a Word doc or whatever you'd like to use, and save it, and you're going to upload that, okay, and into Canvas as your rough draft, and then of course into Pearson at the end when you submit on February 25th. So let me just be sure you understand that as well. I don't have a slide for this, but it just came to thought that Canvas is for your rough draft of all the steps, all 4 steps of your TPA, your assessment, okay? You're going to load those in there for credit for Canvas and for seminar, but the ultimate end result is for you to use these rough drafts that you're creating in class as I take you through one step at a time to make sure that you in time get everything done so that you're not running through in panic and that you're, you know, are doing it backwards or anything like that. So that you can then take it from Canvas, download it, and then upload it into Pearson. It should be a very quick and easy job. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at Template A. We're going to Template A and B is what we're going to go over today. So I need you to turn to pages 6 to 9 if you're multiple subject, and right around there in the same area, depending upon whether you're single subject, SPED, or world language. So whatever assessment guide you have, you need to go to Step 1, Plan, and they're generally the same, okay? So you're going to complete the following steps. And first thing you're going to do is choose one class of students as the focus for the instruction cycle 1. And you're going to verify permission from the teacher and other adults and families of the students who are going to be in the video that they're allowed to be. So you're going to use those permission slips. Remember, the permission slips are in your digital binder. So you need to follow all your district's policies, whatever they require you to do. They have to let you record for this one TPA lesson plan. If they don't let you record any other time, this is the one thing they need to allow you to record for when they accepted our MOU and allowed you to be a student teacher in your district, okay? So you need to just be sure that you know who has signed those permission slips and who hasn't to know who can be in that TPA video. Okay, your school may have already signed video slips and they're totally fine with you using those for the TPA. If not, we have TPA permission slips in English and in Spanish in the digital binder. Okay, candidates and students, at least 3 students must be visible in the video recording. So they need to see you and at least 3 students. During virtual learning, they have given us the ability to have at least only 3. Whereas before we had to have the entire class. But they finally understand that not everyone's going to turn on their cameras. Okay? So Template A is getting to know your students. You're going to consult with your master teacher, your mentor, your supervisory teacher, personnel, families, whoever it is that could give you information about these students to learn their assets and their learning needs. If you click on this, in the digital version, it'll take you to the glossary word in the assessment guide, but go make sure you understand what assets are and make sure you read the overview to understand what assets are of students. Review student work and available assessments or survey data and talk with or observe students and learn more about the class's range of assets, including academic strengths and learning needs. You're going to use information to establish content-specific learning goals, and you're going to include California English Language Development Standards. So ELD standards need to be in this lesson, okay? They must be in this lesson. You click here in the digital version and it'll take you right to the ELD standards. Very simple and easy and quick. If you are multiple subject elementary school teacher, then you would do literacy or math. If you do literacy cycle 1, you do math cycle 2. If you do math cycle 1, you do literacy cycle 2. Now, if you're single subject, you'll do whatever subject you are, both cycles. If you're SPED, you'll pick literacy or math, vice versa each time. And if you're world language, you'll just be keeping to the language that you teach, okay, the content that you teach. All right, then you're going to gather information about your students, all right, and you're going to fill out and complete the template, which is called Template A. And just be sure that any student information that you have is vetted through your master teacher, your mentor teacher, supervisor teacher, and whatever else you have. You're never going to put the student's name or their ID number or their address, obviously, any of that information. So just be sure that you seek guidance from your school and the school site which you're conducting your student teaching. Okay, be sure you do that. All right, so here is over here what you're going to do first. Let me switch because I've got words over that one. The beginning here, it talks about the whole class. It goes over the whole class information about the whole class and description of students' assets and learning needs. So let's go back to that. This is the description of the assets and learning needs of students. What is their prior academic knowledge? What is their what are their proficiency levels for English language? What is their cultural and linguistic resources or funds of knowledge? So such as knowledge and skills derived from cultural experiences. And D, prior experiences and interests related to the content, literacy or math, whichever you plan to teach. And then they're going to ask you also, how many standard English learners do you have? And this gives you a definition of what they mean when they ask you that. It's students whose native language is English, which is everyone else who's with English as a first language, whose mastery of the standard English language or academic English is limited due to their use of non-standard English. Okay, so most students, especially in elementary school, are going to be in this category that every student in the class is learning English, even if English is their first language. They do not understand academic English, which is why you're teaching them. They don't understand those academic vocabulary for everything for each content area that they're learning. So here's the contextual information for the class: your grade level, content area, classroom setting, face-to-face hybrid, total number of students, and so on. All of this detailed information. And then down here, whether you're a bilingual, one-way immersion, two-way immersion, which perhaps you're neither, okay? So it's going to ask you all of the detailed questions about your class. So here is what the template looks like. You can find this template in Canvas within the assignment for Template A. Or once you get loaded into Pearson, the Pearson portal, you can go in and you can download every single template from there. Speaking of that, Rana, R-A-N-A, Kalasho, K-A-L-A-S-H-O. See if the captions do that. It's Rana Kalasha will be sending you your voucher code probably this week or next. As soon as you receive that, please go into the Pearson portal and register for the test and start getting comfortable with using it. Do not wait. That'll just add an extra portion of stress to you once you are going to be submitting it into Pearson. It'd be better to, in order, submit the rough draft to Canvas, then get it fixed and finished the way you want it to, then upload it into Pearson, save it, come out. And then next step, do the same and keep going through that cycle. So by the time you hit February 25th, you're not loading everything for the first time. Okay, so this is what the template looks like, and then it's going to go into the detail of each of your focus students. So it's going to ask you all this detailed information about each focus student. So the first focus student, and you see that here, FS1 is what they call that student. That's what you're going to refer to them as and not use their name, is your EL second language learner. Let me actually pull that up. For some reason I don't have it on the slide. So let's pull that up over here for you. All right, so let's take a look. 3 focus students. So you're going to choose a district identified EL student. It can be an English learner at any CELT or LPAC level. We are in LPAC right now. The previous one is CELT, and you may not have a lot of scores because of virtual learning as the testing wasn't administered last spring. So if you only have CELT scores, that's fine. Whatever level you have in whichever test, CELT is the old, LPAC is the new, you're going to place that in there. And if you don't have an exact English learner, or a designated English learner, you're going to pick the one who struggles with the English language the most, okay? You're going to fill out all the same information for your EL student in the template. Focus student 2 is a student that's taught in the general ed classroom, but may be pulled out, which shouldn't be happening anymore, but which may be pulled out, who's identified as having a learning disability with like an IEP or a 504. Remember, 504 could also be for health issues. Or a student who's identified as GATE, advanced, okay? So that could also be a student. So whomever you pick for that, you're going to fill out the information regarding this. You have to have a Focus 2 student, so you need to find a student that's closest to this category you can get, okay? And there's always going to be someone, even if they're not an official IEP or a 504, it could be someone that you, especially if you're a kindergarten teacher, they have not been designated yet, you may just have an inkling that they're struggling, and that's what you would explain in your Focus 2, okay, here in this content. Focus 3, here it gives you that information about transitional kindergarten or primary grades. Very, very helpful information here about multi-tiered system supports process and who would be on that list according to RTI or multi-tier system of support, okay, so think about that as well. Focus student 3, choose a student whose life experience, either inside or outside of school, has additional needs for academic or emotional needs. So you're looking at a student who may have behavior issues, and they give you examples here. They don't participate, they fall asleep in class, they remain silent, they act out or demand attention. And those life experiences may include challenges at home, community challenges, school as a result of discrimination, like they're regularly discriminated against. They've been bullied often. They're very ill. Loss of parents, divorce, trauma, homelessness, poverty, incarceration, or results as needed as a standard English learner, migrant, immigrant, undocumented student, or even a student in foster care. Or homeless also would be included in this, okay? So that's a broad sweep there, but that's just someone who is really struggling. Their life experiences are causing emotional or behavioral issues in the classroom, okay? So here you would include that information. All right, so that's template A that you can find in Canvas. Let's move on. Here is the rubric. There are 4 rubrics related to this step. So template A rubric. This is how exactly you're going to be scored. And each of the rubrics, so you have template A, you have 4 rubrics for template A, and 1 is for your plan, what you have found out about these students, and the next 3 are about your focus students, okay? So this template A is evidence for this rubric along with the next 3, and I'll show you those coming up next. So this is rubric 1.1, which mostly assesses your template B, your lesson plan, but they're also going to use this to grade you on your template A. These are pages 19 and 20 in your assessment guide, so why don't you go ahead and open there right now. Page 19 and 20. You could put template A above this, and if you look on the next page, actually on page 20, it'll show you what evidence they're going to use to grade you on this. Your goal here is to shoot for number 3. How I was trained as a scorer is I look at number 3 and I say, did they meet all of these requirements for 3? If they did, then I go up to 4. Then I decide, did they meet the requirement for 4? If they did, then I move up to 5 and be sure that they meet the requirements for 4. Just the reverse can be said for going down. Do they meet all the requirements for 3? If the answer is no, even for one of these, then I go down to 2. And if one of these isn't met for level 2, then I go down to 1. Okay? So you're shooting for 3. That's what your goal is, to shoot for a 3. So make sure you're familiar with these essential questions. This first one here for rubric 1.1 is, how does the candidate's proposed learning goals connect with prior knowledge and define specific outcomes for students? How do proposed learning activities, instructional and grouping strategies support, engage, and challenge all students to meet the learning goals? So the reason they're going to be looking at template A is they want to know the demographics of your students, and when they see your lesson plan, does it match the needs of your students? Okay, so that's why this is going to be used to also assess you. So that's template 1.1. Template 1.2, 3, and 4 are about your focus students, your FS1, your FS2, and your FS3. These are on pages 21 through 25. A little variance in pages depending upon which assessment guide you're using. In these, you're also going to look at level 3 and see if you meet all those requirements and go up or down. So your essential question for your EL is, how does the candidate plan instruction using knowledge of English learners' assets and learning needs to support meaningful engagement with content-specific learning goals? And then your question for 1.3 is going to be the same, only related to your student with special needs. And rubric 1.4 is your focus student with academic, emotional life experiences outside of school that challenge them. Okay, so that is what they're going to be looking at, the needs of your students that you have specifically given on this template to decide whether what you wrote as a lesson plan matches what should be taught. Okay? All right. Here you're going to have, and I have these for you in Canvas, I have examples of exemplars. This one happens to be the CTC example. It's a 3rd grade literacy example. If you go into Canvas, and let me just do that right now, let me show you. If you go into Canvas and scroll all the way to the bottom, you have these TPA cycle exemplars. This is the CTC multiple subject exemplar I was telling you. This is a 3rd grade English language arts lesson, but this is prior to COVID. This is a non-virtual lesson. So that was the only example we had. I felt it was very important to make sure that you had examples during COVID about virtual learning, because it's a totally different experience. So I've collected some examples from kind students who are willing to share with you, share their wealth to help you get through this process. So I have a 6th grade math example, I have a 5th grade literacy example, and I have an 8th grade English example. I'm sorry if I don't have specific to PE or SPED or, science, those other things. I'm working on collecting those, but this should help you. The one on the PowerPoint that I have is the CTC 3rd grade literacy. So this is going to be excellent for you to get an idea of what's expected. We know this person passed with at least a 3. We don't know what the score was, but what you're going to do in a moment is you're going to actually look at the rubric and you're going to tell me what you think this person scored and why. What did they do well and what could they improve on? Okay, so this is their template here. And so you can either look here on the screen to do that activity, or you can go into Canvas and open it there. It's up to you either way. All right, so let's move on. Okay, here's the rest of it. Sorry, I missed that. So here's the focus students portion. So this is going to be very helpful because often students struggle the most with, what do I write about my students? So here is FS1, which is your EL student. Here's information about their FS2 student, which is a student with learning disabilities or needs. And here's their FS3, which is the life experience challenge student. So that's going to give you an idea of what it should look like, okay? And you'll get 4. Actually, with this, you'll have 3 others, so a total of 4 examples for you to take a look at. All right, moving to the next slide. This is the 6th grade math example. This is what the scoring sheet looked like for this particular student. So you can see this is what your report's going to look like from CTC when you get it back. So they're going to email it to you, and you're going to turn it in on February 25th, and then about 3 weeks later you'll get the score by email, and this is what it'll look like. So do you see how it's by rubric? Rubric 1.1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is all step 1. This person got a 4, a 4, a 3, and a 3. That's really good, especially during virtual learning. It has been challenging to get scores to score at the level to get a passing. I'll just tell you that. But we have a plan in case you don't pass. We're hoping that you do, and we're getting better at this each time we do this during virtual learning. But this student got a 4, 4, 3, and a 3. Remember, on the rubric, the highest score you can get is a 5, right? So this student did very well. 4, 4, 3, 3. Here's teach and assess, step 2, which we'll get to in session 2. They got a 3 and a 3. Step 3 is reflect. Rubric 1.7, they got a 3, and 1.8 rubric for step 4, they got a 3 as well, for a total of 26. And if you remember on the, let's see if I can pull that up for you. If you remember on the compass map, let's take a look at that really quickly. The score that you need is a 19 out of 40. So there are 8 rubrics. And if you get 5 points for each rubric, 8 times 5 is 40. Now, the one thing that you want to be sure of is that you could get all 4s and 2 1s and you wouldn't pass, even if it was above the score of 19. You are only allowed to get 1 1. If you get 2 1s, you won't pass no matter what the score is. So just keep that in mind, okay? This section down here is very, very important. This is actually questions you can ask yourself that are directly from the rubric, okay? That's going to help you know, make that a little bigger here. Ooh. Directly from the rubric to help you break that down to see if you've completed what you need to get at least a 3. Okay, so does my lesson plan include manageable and appropriate goals, and so on. This is all related to the rubrics for this step. This is how many rubrics there are in this step. There are 4 rubrics, your focus student 1, 2, and 3 in your lesson plan. And then these are higher order thinking skills, which we are going to get into next week. Very, very, very important when you write your lesson plan. There's an infographic. If you move back to the end of your not that one, this one, the end of your CP planner. We're going to be taking a look at that. That's hot skills, if you've heard that before, kind of the Webb's depth of knowledge or Bloom's taxonomy. They want you to be using higher order thinking skills, not these lower order, just remember and just understand. They want you to evaluate, analyze, and create, okay, even apply. All right, so we're going to be looking at that. All right, let's switch back over. So now what I want you to do is you're going to pause the video and you're going to take a look at rubrics 1.1 to 1.4. And then you're going to look at the example of the template A that I shared with you. You can either go back to the PowerPoint, you can go into Canvas, whichever would be most helpful. So what I might recommend is have the rubrics up on one window that are in this PowerPoint. Scroll back a couple slides till you get to the right rubrics, and then on another window have Canvas open and open the exemplar template A, and or scroll back and forth, whatever you want to do. And I want you to type in here. This is required, so be sure you type something thoughtful about what you notice. What did the candidate do well? You're going to type that in here. What did the candidate do well? Then doing the same, looking at the information, looking at the example, and looking at the rubrics, what do you think the candidate could improve? Going back to this one, also, what score would you give this candidate? Do you think it's a 3? Do you think it's a 4? Or do you think it's a 5? What could they have, what did they do well to get that score? Here, what could they improve to get that score? Okay, is it a 3, 4, or 5? Tell me what you think. All right, so you're going to do that. That's for template A. So pause the video right now, take about 15 minutes or however long that will take you. And when you're done, please come back and we'll move on to template B. Welcome back. Hopefully we're able to kind of get an idea of what template A looks like, what an exemplar of template A looks like. What score did you give the student? Did you give them a 3? Did you give them a 4 or 5? What did you give them on each of those rubrics? Okay, so now we're going to launch into template B. So you need your assessment guide, your planner, same thing, and your Canvas window open, ready to go in just a moment. So here is template B. This is the lesson plan, and this is where you're going to use their actual lesson plan. Do not use a UDL Point Loma lesson plan because we discovered that does not work well right now during virtual teaching. It doesn't translate over to scorers very well. They have been scoring our students low who do use the UDL. So use the lesson plan template. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. So you're going to turn to, in your assessment guide, around 10 and 11, page 10 and 11, depending upon which assessment guide you're in. So it's still step 1, go to the lesson plan. So the directions are, use knowledge about your students to establish content-specific learning goals and develop one lesson plan focused on either literacy or mathematics. Now remember, if you're an elementary school teacher, credentialing, to be elementary school teacher, you're going to pick literacy or math the first time, and then when you go to cycle 2, you're going to do the opposite. So say you do literacy this time, you'll do math the second time, okay? And if you're single subject, you're going to just do whatever subject you are. If you're SPED, you're going to choose literacy or math. And if you're world language, you'll just continue to do the language that you are teaching, okay? And then it also includes their integration of other content as appropriate. However, learning goals must reflect literacy or mathematics. So your learning goals and your standards that you pick need to reflect literacy or math. You may use, it says, any lesson plan format, but we're going to just cross that out right there, okay? Because we want you, we want you to use their template, okay? We've learned by experience. So the sample lesson plan template is provided. We want you to use a UDL. Their template is not to use our UDL. You're using the UDL approach that is already embedded into their lesson plan template, okay? So this is their template. 1, what are you planning to teach in the lesson? What's the content to be taught? What are the learning goals? Where and how does this lesson fit in? What do you expect the students to learn? 2, how will you know whether students have learned what you're planning to teach? What are your assessments? How are you going to check for understanding? 3, how will you structure student learning activities? What is the design of your activities? You know, are they active? Are they challenging, engaging, and accessible to all students to achieve the learning goals? So you might be using manipulatives. You might be using think, pair, share, models, drawings. Here they have a lot of examples for you to show, okay? And then how will you group students? And in virtual learning, it's very difficult, right? You're not going to really be grouping them unless you put them in breakout rooms. And if they're little, that's going to be hard to do. So it just depends on your situation with virtual learning, how you're going to handle that. 4, how will you plan your instruction to support learning through these student activities? So what are the instructional strategies? How are you going to scaffold and differentiate for students to help them learn? And then the last portion here, what are the resources and materials and educational technology you're going to use? Right now, you can't avoid using educational technology pretty much. So what is it you're going to be using to teach with technology? And then finally, what adaptations or accommodations are you going to be using? Very, very, very important. If you have students with an IEP that use assistive technology, this would be the place where you would write that in. All right, moving on. I just realized I have the date wrong. This is actually the 31st. Okay, let's see how many places I made a mistake on that, and I will fix it live in the video. It's going to be magic. Okay, let's watch it change. January 31st. Ting! Fantastic. Okay, so here's the next slide, and I'm magically changing it right now as well. January 31st. Ting! I'm magic. Sorry. This is the template B. This is the actual lesson plan. This is what it looks like. This is what you want to use. Okay, this link is in Canvas, or it's in the Pearson portal. Once you get in there for your, with your using your voucher code and you've registered for the test, it's in there, and you can download all the Pearson templates, or you can just get them from Canvas connected to each assignment when it's due. It's up to you. But here's how it's broken down. You've got the lesson overview, the details, background information, and the overview of the lesson. Then you've got the content of the lesson, which is all based on UDL, and you can tell that here because it's saying what misunderstandings or misconceptions do you expect students to have. That is definitely part of a UDL lesson, barriers to learning. And then assessment checking for understanding, and then structured student learning activities. What are you going to do for them to learn? And then instruction to support them in learning, the scaffolding and the differentiation and the strategies you're going to use. Okay, so that's what the template looks like. So then next we're going to switch to the example. This is also the CTC example that you can find, and I'm going to magically change the due date, which is January 31st. This is the third grade literacy lesson again, which is, actually this isn't located in Pearson. It is located in Canvas, so I'm going to cross out that Pearson as well. It's located in Canvas at the very bottom, like I showed you. This is the third grade literacy example. So we have her doing a Cloudy with Chance of Meatballs opinion writing. So she's doing reading, English language arts for third graders. It's 60 minutes. Here are her standards. Here are her ELD standards. Here are her learning goals. And here's the actual overview of the lesson, all right here. Here is how she's going to check for understanding. And there is more for that. It looks like I have not put in the whole thing. So just be sure you check into Canvas. It'll have the whole portions of the lesson there. And in just a minute, you're going to be using this to tell how you think this particular student did on the rubric. Okay, so be ready to do that. And for this one, you have the same rubrics as for template A. So you've got 1.1, and then 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4. And that's what these are on these other pages here. So you're going to go to the rubrics in your assessment guide, which is rubric 1.1, on about pages 19 through 20. This is going to be January 31st due, template B. And so you're shooting for a 3. And it's the same essential questions, same rubrics for template A that we went over. So how did the candidates' proposed learning goals connect with prior knowledge and define specific outcomes for students? How do the activities and groupings support, engage, and challenge students to meet the learning goals? So can you say that this student met the requirements for a 3? If so, then you go up to 4. If they met the 4 requirements, then you can go up to 5. Same thing going down. Okay, so you're going to be taking a look at that in a moment for template B. You're going to do the same process and activity. So here is the Focus Student 1, FS1, FS2, and FS3, pages 21 to 25, about in your assessment guide, due January 31st. So you're going to be, in a moment, taking a look at the rubrics. You're going to have the rubrics open, and you're going to have the exemplar open, and you're going to take a look at both next to each other, and then you're going to answer this question for template B. So after looking at these rubrics, what do you think the candidate did well in template B, and what score would you give them? What score would you give them? And then after looking at the rubrics, what do you think the candidate could have done to improve in template B, and what score would you have given them? Okay, and why did you give that score? Okay. All right, so you're going to pause right now. You're going to press pause here in a moment when you're ready, and you're going to go take another 10 or 15 minutes to do that activity. All right, go ahead and pause and come back when you're done. All right, welcome back. Hopefully you got a chance to take a look at how you thought this student did, whether they got a 3, 4, or 5, and you were able to answer and interpret, actually analyze how you felt this student did. So please be sure it's required that you made responses there in these 2 boxes for what they did well and what they can improve in. All right, so good job. You did a great job taking a look at that. So now after we've looked at template A and template B, once again, it's a fire hose of information, I know, but just looking at what you've seen tonight, how do you feel about template A and B? Do you feel green? I feel good. I feel like I've got a handle on it. I think I can do this. Or are you orange? I think I'm pretty good, but I have a few unanswered questions. Or are you dark orange there where you're like, I am not feeling very good. I get one part of it. The rest of it, though, is completely confusing. Or are you red? I am completely lost. Help. I need an appointment with you, Professor Call, which will be completely fine. Okay? So this will help me know what each of you need and how I can help or how I can improve my teaching. Okay? Next, what I want you to do is I want you to type in, what do you understand? And then I want you to type in what you need for more clarification. What do you need more clarification about? At least one in each category, okay, required for this activity. So please type one in on the what did you understand and at least one in on what did you need more clarification about. So you're going to press pause, complete that, typing in your answers, and come back when you're done. I'll give you a couple of minutes for that. All right, great. So welcome back. So now this is the portion of kind of the announcements of the evening. I'm going to be sharing, also looking at the clinical practice planner and going over what's to come and what you can expect and need to be prepared for. So let's start first with an app that I have designed and created for just you in mind. It's a way for us to communicate with each other. You have access to all the student teachers, clinical practice students, and the supervisors. You can share ideas and ask for support in real time. You can access the syllabi and the CP resources. You've got your lesson planning and your resources all in one place. This is a great resource that is called Pabulum. And what Pabulum means is sustenance. So I named it Pabulum because I consider it sustenance for educators. So the downside about this is that the only one I have done so far with time crunch and all of that, it took me a long time to do this. We've been using this about 1.5 years now, is for Mac, Apple. Okay, I only have it in the App Store. I'm working on getting it and making it for Android. So I will get there. But this is in the App Store, and you just type it in as Pabulum, and it should come up. I think it says PLNU Pabulum, actually, now that I think about it. But this is what the first page looks like, okay? So you've got your CP people that you can get in touch with. You've got resources. I've got a Bible and devotions in there. I've even got exercises to support you through improving in health and keeping you mentally sane right now. And then I have a directory and a lot more. So clicking on more here takes you to more. So I would love it if you could take some time and download that and just start using that. I'm going to be sending some announcements through there too as well. So we'll be using that in different ways this quad. All right, next, this is the time we're going to fill in your planner. So if I had a song, because I was a kindergarten teacher, I'd sing a song. Get your planner, get your planner. Okay, I won't do that to you, but that's what I would do if I was teaching kindergarten. And I'd ask you to take it out. And then in Canvas, there is the calendar that lists everything that you need, okay? So now I'm going to, or when everything's due. So this is what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to do a model of using the CP planner and how you can use it as if I'm a student, okay? So here I go to the planner. I have already filled it out as if I'm the student, put my name on it, and I want to convince you as to why this is so important to use, okay? It's like backwards mapping in the classroom. You're backwards mapping your quad so that you can be prepared and not be freaking out. Okay? Because I guarantee that if you don't plan, you will be freaking out, you'll be stressed, and you may act ugly. It's just what happens when we're stressed, okay? So, I'm sorry, that is really loud on the microphone. I apologize for that. I'll figure out a new way to do that without being so loud. So you're going to mark which one you are. You're going to write down goals for the month. Like, for example, I put in here, you know, I need to be sure I've got my digital binder done. I need to watch all the resource videos. Oh, that's right. I need to get the voucher code for Pearson. Her name is Raina Kalasho. She's going to send an email. Okay. I need to download the SIBME app. I need to download the Pabulum app. SIBME I need to use because it has that big button to record on it. It makes it easier to record and load into SIBME, okay, using the SIBME app. I've written dates in here to remember. Oh, that's right, I have an asynchronous class that I'm watching right now on January 19th. And then some questions that I put in here to be helpful, but you can add anything here you want. Do I know my scoring rubrics? Have I read the performance assessment guide? Have I planned for steps 1 through 4? And by the way, this is when we're going to need to be sure we've done it by session 5, okay, because the peer review will be coming, and I've marked that on my calendar in here too. Have I reviewed the cycle 1 examples? Do I understand barriers in the UDL? Did I find all the templates in Pearson or in Canvas? They're in both places, okay? And then I can mark any other things in here I need to write in. Okay, trying to do this quietly. Holy moly. Here is the calendar. I've marked the dates, okay, and I've marked when things are due. Like on the 11th, we had our first class. On the 18th, which is yesterday, I was supposed to have read the overview. The 17th, that forms section was due, and I needed to mark in Canvas that I had done the forms video and that I was complete, that I completed it. And then tonight, asynchronous class, or whenever else it is you're going to do it, which I could actually pull through the week here. And I want you to have the asynchronous this session due completed by Saturday. I'll take a look at your responses on Saturday and who has marked attendance and who has participated. And then on Sunday, I don't write very small, and my handwriting is horrible now because I used to do this all the time when I was teaching in the classroom with kiddos. But my handwriting's gotten a lot worse, so I apologize if it's big and not able to be read. But be read. What this means is I need to have read the assessment guide by Sunday. Your due dates are mostly on Sunday. I need to have done the reflection for Sunday. There's a reflection in there. And then on the 25th, before class, I always read the overview. Then I have class. That'll be week 3. And then the 31st, this is when most of, this is when all of step 1 is due. Template A through D is due. A, B, C, and D. Okay? So that's the big picture for the month. And then these are the weeks. This is critical, okay, because this is going to help you map out your lessons. So I can go through and write down when my lessons are going to be, what day I should be on what lesson plans. DLP stands for daily lesson plans. What I'm teaching for the day. What I'm doing for the day, and I can keep track of my hours this way. Although I put it on the log, this can help me kind of track what I've been doing. Okay, I'm going to be teaching lesson 3.1 for math all day because I'm a 7th grade math teacher. That was about 6 hours from beginning to end. Then I met with my team for 1.5 hours. But you don't have to mark your hours here necessarily, but it's to plan what's going to be happening. This day, maybe you have a staff meeting, so you're going to put that on here so you know that you're going to be busy from 4 to 5, whatever it is. And these are all your lessons. So week 2 now, so you're going to be writing those in as you go. Generally what you're doing. What is the summary of what I'm teaching each of these days? This day I'm teaching lesson 3.2, Go Math. Okay. If I am a multiple subject teacher, I only have to do a daily lesson plan for one subject. So for my daily lesson plan this day, it could be history, Egypt. Okay, whatever it is I might be doing that day. So I know my daily lesson plan should match that, and that's what I'm writing, and that's what I'm preparing for. So when I sit down with my team or my cooperating teacher, as they tell me what we're doing, I can write down generally what we're doing each day so that I can backwards map and plan when I'm going to be recording for my TPA and what I'm going to be teaching that day so that I can plan ahead. So I marked off for MLK, marked my DLP days. I would have written all my summaries in there. Here's an example of day 8. Here's what I'm teaching, my hours that day, and it happens to be the day I'm doing my observation. This is important I know what I'm teaching that day because I have to know to turn in my UDL lesson plan 24 hours in advance. Turn in UDL to university supervisor, okay, 24 hours in advance. So that then I know at 7:40 to 8:20 I'm going to be teaching and I'm going to be observed, and I'm going to be observed teaching an ELA lesson. And this lesson I am going to record, so that means I am going to, actually no, this one I am going to have her come in live. So she's going to come in live, so I need to give her the link. I need the link to give to her. Make myself a mental note. Or him. And then the next day, we're going to meet to go over that observation, because when you meet in person, that's what you do. You meet with your supervisor, you go over their evaluation, and then you go and you complete the analysis and the reflection, which I'll kind of show you in a few moments here. Okay, that's if I'm doing it live, if your supervisor comes in live to observe you. All right, so here I head into week 3. So sorry about that. And I've written down, I will have written my summaries of what I'm teaching those days. I'm filling it in, erasing it. Of course, I wouldn't write in pen. I have these wonderful, as a teacher, that's just what happens to you. You love pens, right? So I have these wonderful erasable pens. They're my favorite thing. And erasable colored pencils, which are even more fun. But I'm going to write in something that I can erase in, because that's just what happens in a planner. In your lesson plan book, is that you just have to change things and move things around, and that's completely fine. Okay. Due this week on Sunday is template A, B, C, and D. So I've written that in and I've highlighted it. I know that's important. And then we head into February. So I filled out my February calendar and what's happening for the month. And here I have the most important date. Here is I'm submitting to Pearson my final draft of my TPA, all 4 steps, step 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is everything that's happening for the week, when everything is due. And just some notes, don't forget Sunday at the end of the quad task string is due, so I need to put on here that this is March 5th. No, not March 5th. See, that's why you have an erasable pen. March 7th. And then the following, let's see, Sunday, so that would be the 10th. Any leftover work in Canvas is due. Okay, and we'll talk about that. But that's just something I wrote down because I heard the professor say it, so I'm writing it down so I don't forget. And then each month you have another goals for the month and dates to remember. Anything in here that would help you get organized to make sure you remember things you need to do. And then here we head into week 4, the details of week 4, the first week in February. So each Monday I read the overview before I come to class. I go to class. This week on the 3rd, I've decided that what works best is I'm going to record my TPA lesson, because in Canvas it recommends that week 4 I should be recording my TPA lesson, okay, to make sure and have time to get things done. And then I happen to have an observation on Thursday. That's when we scheduled it. So I could possibly, they're so close to each other, maybe I should do them together. So I could actually consider my TPA also my observation, okay, and save time. So you would just double that up and use that as both. You can totally do that. This lesson, for example, I decide I'm going to record it because my supervisor can't come in live, and I'm going to load this to SIBME. Well, if I do that, I need to also be prepared to do annotations, okay? So the next day I put on my calendar, I'm going to do the annotations, which is step 1. I'm going to do analysis with my annotations, and I'll show you that in a minute. Sunday, part E is due. I've written that in there. And I have class. The next Monday, week 5, read overview. I always do before I come. I go to class, and I'm going to finish up my annotations, because step 1 is me with analyzing. Step 2 is my supervisor evaluating, and step 3 is my reflection. I'm annotating and reflecting on how I did. Sunday of this week, it's template F and G that's due. And then we're starting to get to week 6. This is where it gets crazy because we're headed down to the wire, which is why it's so important. You're going to flip through this and all of a sudden you're going to be at week 6 and you're going to be panicked if you have not paced yourself and gotten things done as you go, okay? So week 6, you have the overview you read before you come to class in Canvas. Then this night is peer review. This night is when your TPA rough draft needs to be due. You will have completed the whole thing by the time on the calendar. If you stick to this calendar and you follow my guidelines, you will have your rough draft due by Monday, and you'll come to class and you'll be in pairs and you'll be reviewing your work. Okay, so you're going to give feedback to each other. This is so important and ridiculously helpful in kind of just checking your work and getting another set of eyes. Okay, your supervisor can do that as well, your university supervisor. I wish I could do it. I cannot do it for so many students, as many as there are in this class. But they can not check it and tell you that you're going to pass, but check it and just say, hey, I do see you're doing a great job here. But peer review is really helpful because people going through and doing the same thing you are, it helps you brainstorm and kind of check each other as a second pair of eyes. Then I'm, for example, going to have my observation, my third one there, and I'm going to load that into SIBME and go through the annotation process again. I have a reflection due. I've taken this straight from the calendar and straight from Canvas and placed this on my calendar. Week 7, I don't have class because I am preparing to submit to Pearson on the 25th. So I have everything due, I've had it peer reviewed, and then this week I can actually take time and be sure that my rough draft is adjusted and fixed to become my final draft to submit into Pearson on Thursday. Okay, and this is just going through the final step of my annotations for my third observation. Here's week 8. I'm going to, because you should be doing an observation every other week. So I've got observation 4, going to load it into SIBME, going through the annotation process, read, overview, here's the final class, here's the last day of the quad, and this is what's due Sunday in task stream, okay? So do you see how now I have it all laid out? So when I go to my planning meetings or anything with my cooperating teacher or my team, I can go back and look and say, oh, that day I have template C due or template F due. That would be a bad day. Can we do it a different day? Or whatever it is that it might be. I don't want to do my observation that day because this is happening. Or, okay, I will have taught these 3 lessons, so that will make sense. That would work that day. Okay, that's why this is so critical that you use your planner. All right? Okay, moving on. All right, we're almost done. You're doing great. So here's the SIBME annotations I was just sharing with you. If you do this live, if your supervisor comes in live, you are going to be filling this out when they're done. So this is in your clinical practice digital binder. It's called the Analysis and Reflection Conference Guide. So if they would observe you, they would fill out the evaluation, which looks like this, okay, related to the TPEs. And they would give you feedback. And then you would fill out this analysis and reflection guide. You'd analyze how you did, and then you'd reflect, okay? It has them both in this particular document here. But since if you're doing it video and you load it into SIBME, instead of using this document, you're going to do it by annotations within the video. So this is a guide I want you to use to help you know how to annotate. So if the first annotation you do is you, and it's the analysis, so you load it into SIBME, and your university supervisor is not going to make any comments until you analyze your lesson. So these questions here can guide what you could say at different places in the video. So 1, did you teach the lesson as planned? So you might mark your annotation at 4 minutes, 32 seconds, whatever it's going to be, and say, oh, here I had to change it because 6 of my kids didn't come, and so the group that I had planned wouldn't work, so I had to adjust and adapt. Or everything was hunky-dory and we did it exactly as planned. And you'll say why. 2, how appropriate were your time allocations for students? You might find in minute 10 and 42 seconds that you did not give them enough time and you have 12 kids raising their hands, their little virtual hands, saying, I don't understand, I don't understand. And so you could say, oh goodness, I think I went through this too fast. My time allocation was too short for this particular one. Number 3, to what extent did the class as a whole achieve the academic learning goals of the lesson? Maybe it's a 45-minute lesson, and maybe at 40 minutes and 22 seconds, you say something like, the whole class really felt like they understood, and you can tell by this exit ticket that they seem to understand what's going on. The next one is, how did your focus students do? It's at maybe 20 minutes, 23 seconds. FS1 student seems to be understanding, or perhaps doesn't seem to be understanding, and you analyze and say, ooh, I could have done a better job here. They weren't able to understand. Number 5, what did you do for the students who did not achieve the goal? So there's going to always be students, right, who don't understand and didn't get it. What are you going to do for them? So 25 minutes in, you're going to make a notation that, okay, here, this is why I pulled these 5 into a breakout room, because they didn't understand and I needed to help them gather that information and get a better understanding. Question 6, how well did the lesson connect with your students' prior knowledge, backgrounds, and learning styles? So you're going to pick a location in the video where you have evidence of you picking or you using prior knowledge and saying, this is why we watched the video of a circus beforehand, because most of my students have never been to the circus, and the story is about a circus. So, in minute 7:32, I show this video, and that's why. Okay, so this helps you guide you through that. So you've done your first annotation. The second annotation is by your supervisor. They're going to complete this through their evaluation. Throughout the video, they're going to annotate different things like, such and such minutes I saw you engage and support all students in learning, and this is the evidence, or this is what I think you need to do to develop that. All right, and the final step is for you to reflect. Here are the questions to guide you through in reflection, just like you did in the analysis. So just read those. I won't go through every single one in detail, and just add those into your annotations. Okay, so those are the SIBME annotation steps. All right, so next week, we are going to be moving on to the official session 2, which is week 3 of the quad. Hard to believe. We're going to be focusing then on step 1. We'll still be in step 1, but we're going to be moving on to part C and D. So this week we focused on part A and B. Next week we'll focus on part C and D. So you're going to read the weekly overview before you come to class. Every week make sure you do that so you're prepared and you've front-loaded yourself on what's to come. And class is Monday, January 25th from 4:30 to 6. Okay, every week from 4:30 to 6. And what I should remind you of is that every Friday there is a Q&A. Don't forget, this Friday there is a Q&A from 4 to 5. The link is in Canvas. Okay? All right, here's just a little checklist. If you're a checklist person, you could write these in your planner or whatever would be the most helpful, but here's a checklist of things to keep in mind. Begin collecting student information for template A. Getting to know your students. Start thinking about it's not a unit. Oh, I'm going to need to cross that out. What lesson will you teach? Okay, what lesson will you teach? One lesson. You're starting to think about that. What am I going to teach? And when? Let's see, read your Cycle 1 assessment guide. It would do you good to read it over and over again if need be. Okay, the more you know the assessment guide, the better you will do. Set your observation dates with your university supervisor. Be sure you have those set because you want to know when those dates are. I would highly recommend you do that so you can plan out. Backwards map, remember, backwards plan. Add your daily lesson plans to your binder. You should have 7 by today. 5 last week. Oh, you should have 6 actually. 5 last week and 1 this week. We didn't have school yesterday, so it should be 6. And then you're going to start template A and B. It's not due until the 31st, but you're starting it. Do not wait. Don't wait, okay, till the 30th to start A and B. Do not do that. you're going to be stressed and you're going to be freaking out, okay? I've seen it time and time and time and time and time again. Start this week. If you follow my directions and my guidance as to when to turn things in and when to do these things, you will do just fine. It's already stressful enough, right? So I've put these guidances here with my expertise and knowledge of what students need and how much time you need to complete this, to submit by February 25th. So follow my deadlines as close as you can. Now I will say, if something happens at school and there's an emergency, or you get moved back home or into the classroom and it's just not going to work for that day, or there's been some kind of a kink because it's a pandemic, just let me know, okay? It's not a big deal. Just let me know. But for the most part, you need to stick with the deadline so that you can keep caught up and you're not stressed and trying to finish it as you roll into cycle 2, which is even bigger, okay? Just trust me and follow the deadlines. The last one here is in your binder, your CP binder. You're going to have if you haven't looked at it yet, there is a timeline. I like the triad timeline or the dual timeline if you're intern, that says what the university supervisor should be doing in week 3, what the cooperating teacher should be doing, and what the traditional student or the intern should be doing. So take a look at week 3 of your timeline to be sure you're on track for what you should be doing. Okay? And now let's give some kudos to each other. If you've had people supporting you this week because you texted them 10 times with questions, your little cohort, whoever your posse is, that you've exchanged phone numbers to text or emails, whatever it is, however you're contacting each other, or you're Zooming each other to vent, whatever it is you're doing, let's put some kudos to each other to say what are some great things that you want to be thankful for. Thank you, John, for taking time to explain that to me. Excuse me. Thank you, Ethel. I'm coming up with some great names here. For being patient and sending me the templates because I couldn't find them. Whatever it is, okay? Let's give some kudos to each other and make each other feel good and encourage one another, okay? Give you a second to do that. Pause if you would like while you go ahead and do that. I'll give you a couple minutes. Okay, so let's end this session with questions, as we always do. I would like for you to write on the screen your questions, and it will collect with questions from other people. You could, if it's the same question, just do a +1, +2, +3 instead of having to write the question over again, if that makes sense. So if someone asks, I don't understand how to write the lesson plan, that's very broad. It would be more detailed than that. And then you see that up there and you would like to say, ooh, ditto, me too. Just add +1. Someone else comes along and they have the same question and they can add +2 and so on. Okay, so just ask your questions there, and that will give me a great guide as to what we need to focus on for the TPA Q&A on Friday from 4 to 5 and for class next week. And with that, it's been 1 hour and 12 minutes, and with about 30 minutes of activities, probably more like 40 minutes of activities. So you're looking at about 2 hours for this whole session, which is 30 minutes more than normal, but I think that will be fine to complete this whole thing. Okay, so be sure you complete this by Saturday at midnight, and I'll be looking at it on Sunday and Monday to mark attendance that you actually completed what you were required to complete. As always, text me or email me if you have any questions. Please come pick up your printed assessment guides or planners from my porch. I have made them for everyone now, so everyone can come to pick them up unless you didn't request them. Just let me know if you need them. And that will be all for this evening. I'm so glad to virtually see you, even though I don't get to see you, but I will see you on Monday or Tuesday, whichever class you are in next week. Okay, and I look forward to seeing you then. God bless you. Have a great rest of the week.